This is 2021's The Deep House. Warning, spoilers ahead. We open up on Tina and Ben as they film their vlog in Ukraine, and Ben explains that they're about to explore a big abandoned building in the country. They activate one of their drones to get a bird's eye view of the property, and you can really see how massive it is. Then, Tina and Ben head inside to film in person, and it looks as though a bunch of vandals have spray-painted graffiti all over the walls. Ben explains that a woman poisoned a bunch of children in the 70s when it was a sanatorium, and it was closed after word got out. Since then, the nurse haunts the building, looking for someone else to poison. These are the people who are just asking for trouble. It takes a special person to hear a tragic story and rumor of possession, and then they think it's a good idea to hop right in. This could be even worse if they stay the night. Eventually, Tina ends up losing Ben and he jumps out to startle her. 3 months later, Tina soaks in the bathtub and she tries to train herself to hold her breath longer. Once she's done, she gets dressed and comes outside to see Ben filming her from the van. He asks her what her time was and she lies by saying 3 minutes. Ben thinks that it should be longer than that and she doesn't know why, since they're scuba diving instead of snorkeling. Ben mentions that they're headed to a lake and they hop inside to get going. I'm sorry, 3 minutes isn't long enough? Well, count me out of this adventure too. I'm lucky to get like 30 seconds. Eventually, they come to a countryside where Ben starts vlogging, and he catches a glimpse of Tina going to the bathroom. After that nice little surprise, they get back on the road and eventually come to a quaint, quiet town. Tina checks the GPS, but it says they've reached their destination. She thinks that they're lost, but Ben thinks that this super secret spot is just that super secret. Ben starts recording again as they walk around a dying village in South France, and Tina goes into a store to get directions. The store owner tells them that they actually can't miss it, and he directs them to a lake that's full of tourists. Ben's upset that the super secret spot isn't actually super secret, but Tina's relieved to just be a tourist for the day. Ben eventually comes around, but he only does so if wine's involved. Cheers to that, Ben's speaking my language now. Oh wait, he's talking to a random guy on his way to get wine. Things are about to change, aren't they? Sure enough, Ben comes back to the table with wine in a plastic cup, and Tina finds out that the man's name is Pierre. Pierre mentioned that everything was destroyed, and he mentions that while this part of the lake isn't secret anymore, there is an arm of the lake that no one knows about. Pierre says that at the bottom of this secret arm of the lake, there's a perfectly preserved house. Naturally, they take him up on his offer, and I want to slap Ben for Tina. As they continue further, Pierre mentions that this section of the arm doesn't have a name, and the valley flooded in 1984. During the ride, Pierre and Tina speak French about how this is actually Ben's passion instead of hers, but when Ben interrupts, Pierre mentions that the last section of the journey has to be done on foot. While they walk, Pierre admits that it's a long hike, but he promises that it'll be worth it in the end. Eventually, they come to a secret part of the lake, and Ben and Tina get their equipment ready. While they're preparing, Pierre asks about Ben's drone, Tom, and Pierre gets a little cryptic in his speech. Once in the water, Ben points out that they've got 60 minutes of air in their tanks, and Pierre tells them to follow the stairs down. Stairs in the lake? What sort of hell is he sending them into? Once they get underwater, Tina admits that Pierre gives her the creeps, and she wants Ben to drive them back once they're done. Tina gets her flipper stuck on a piece of debris, and Ben comes back to help her get free. Eventually, they come across a fully preserved car, and Tina's surprised to see it in such good condition. Eventually, they come to a drop-off, and the way down looks dark. They come across the stairs that Pierre was talking about, and they follow them further down. The stairs lead them to the gates of the property, and they swim over them to get inside. Tina notices that the fish don't swim in this area, and she notices that the music they were playing is becoming distorted. The first thing that they find is a crypt, and the first thing that Ben does is open it. If Ben makes it to the end, I might actually be a little upset. There's no way that someone who's doing every single thing wrong can actually make it to the end. They move on to the house, and they find that the door's padlocked. Ben decides that it's time to split up so they can find an entrance, and they run into each other at the back of the house. Ben decides to check the upstairs next, and they find that the attic window opens up for them. Then comes the jump scare of the century, and I'm actually mad at myself for jumping at that one. Gets points for that. Ben sends Tom in first, and it scouts the area for him. Once the attic is cleared, Ben and Tina follow and observe everything in there. Tina's surprised to see that the previous owners left everything exactly where it was, and they continue checking everything inside. Tina gets scared when a little doll floats her way, and they do an oxygen check. Ben is at 87%, and Tina's at 84%. He gives her a friendly reminder to slow down her breathing, and they move into the rest of the house. Ben sends Tom ahead with the sonar, and they hear a distorted voice come over the comms. Ben assumes that it's interference from a plane or something overhead, and they continue once Tom shows them that there's nothing on the sonar. Ben eventually finds a family portrait, and their family name is Montagnac. The deeper they go, the more I'm really wondering how this stuff is all being kept preserved. Even Tina points out that the house has been underwater since before she was born, and some of the stuff looks better than the stuff in my own house. Tina finds snapshots of children that were in the house, and while Ben messes around with the rocking horse, his light illuminates someone behind the veil of the bed. He goes to see who's behind it, but some of their equipment starts failing. Once the veil is parted, they find that no one was actually there. Next, Tom starts having trouble, and Ben reboots him before moving on. They head downstairs next, and they come to the front door. When he opens it, they find the paneling that was keeping them from getting in, and they find that someone was trying to scratch their way out. Just then, a piano makes a sound in the other room, and they start to wonder if they're the only divers down there. Ben sends Tom into the other room, and he keeps his knife at the ready. Tom detects movement, but when Ben turns him to check it out, it disappears. Ben assumes that the string on the piano snapped from age and pressure, but Tina wants him to admit that something's just off about the situation. He reminds her that there's no such thing as haunted houses, and he thinks that there's absolutely no danger for them in this house. Ben also doesn't think that there are too many rooms for them to explore, but the next room has missing people posters all over the wall. Ben sends Tom into the kitchen next, and he starts having technical issues again. When the footage cuts back in, they see that Tom is in front of some sort of body with an animal skull on it, and Ben thinks that it's a good idea to go see what it is. Once inside, they find a giant crucifix attached to the boards, and Ben notices that there's a secret room behind it. Look, religious or not, if you find a giant crucifix blocking a door that wasn't supposed to be there, you do not remove it and keep going. Whoever put it there believes in it, and that means evil's behind there. Once they get inside the room, they realize that it's too murky, and Ben sends Tom in again. They follow behind him, and they find that this is a sort of storage garage. Tina's confused as to why they keep finding all sorts of video gear everywhere, and she's really curious as to what the family was filming. Suddenly, they come across two dead figures who were chained up with masks on, and Tina says that she's ready to go. Ben wants more shots though, and he convinces her to wait a moment while he gets a closer look. Ben deduces that the couple were chained up before the flooding, and he notices a satanic symbol on the ground. Suddenly, a door creaks open, and Ben decides to leave Tina alone with the dead bodies. This is boyfriend of the year. If your boyfriend doesn't leave you in a satanic ritual room, underwater, with dead bodies, is he really even your boyfriend? Ben finds jars of body parts and film equipment in the next room, but Tina's had enough. The two of them make their way back up to the second story, and Tina tells Ben that they should call the cops once they get back up. He doesn't want to though, since the cops would confiscate their memory cards. But now, they've got a bigger problem. When they reach the attic window, they find that there's a brick wall there now, and Tina starts panicking. Ben reminds her to conserve her oxygen, but she sees a little girl floating towards them from behind Ben. When she turns around, she's gone, and Tina thinks that this house is haunted now. They head back downstairs and try to break the glass windows, but that doesn't work out. Suddenly, a fish swims by Tina, and she follows it to see if it leads to another way in or out. Where's the fish going? Well, you guessed it, back to the satanic basement garage. That fish is about to lead them to a gateway to hell. Once they're back down there, Tina loses the fish, but she notices an opening that's too small for them. Suddenly, Tina hears music playing from the radio again, but Ben tells her that he doesn't hear anything. She notices a well opening, but it has a grate over it. When she looks back down, she notices that Ben's missing. So are the dead couple too. Time to give up. To top it off, she ends up falling into one of the rusty hooks, and it hooks her in the leg. If the demons and the lack of oxygen don't get to her, bet the tetanus will. Tom appears in front of her and flashes his red light on her, and Tina really starts to freak out. Now she's tangled up in the chains, and she only calms down once Ben shows up. She tells him that he didn't answer her, and she tells him that the bodies disappeared. Ben points out to her that he was right there this whole time, and he shows her that the bodies are still here. He decides to remove the masks from the bodies, and they realize that these are Mr. and Madame Montagnac. Suddenly, they come to life and slowly float after them. Ben tells Tina to swim, and they close the door to the dining room. Ben tells her that they have to try the chimney, and the only way to make it is to take their tanks off. He reminds her that she needs to control her breathing better, and they take a moment to calm their nerves. Ben sends Tom up the chimney to give them some light, and he assures Tina that they can do this. That's nice. You can. Did he even check to make sure that the chimney wasn't blocked off? What are they going to do if the chimney's blocked and the Montagnacs barge in? You can't turn in a chimney. Sure enough, the chimney collapses and Ben and Tina pass out. When Tina comes to, she finds that she's back in the house and she tries to call out for Ben. She cuts the rope that held her to Ben, and she falls into the dining room. Finally, Ben comes to and his mask is cracked. Water leaks into his mask as he realizes that his oxygen tank isn't connected, and he fixes his own problems before trying to see where Tina is. While Tina's in the dining room, Ben finds that he ended up in the bedroom upstairs. Tina spots Tom, but when she reaches for it, his light turns red and leaves her. Ben finds a family tree, and he realizes that Pierre is actually the Montagnac's son. Well, isn't that convenient? If they don't explain him better, this movie loses all its points. Just then, one of the bodies walks into the bedroom and Ben hides under the bed. Meanwhile, the electricity starts flickering on and off in the dining room, and Tina finds that the mister is haunting and chasing her around the dining room. Ben continues hiding under the bed, but he's forced to get out once the little girl Sarah spots him. Tina swims around the house looking for Ben, but she eventually runs into Tom in his red light. She follows Tom, thinking that Ben is controlling it, and she goes into the bedroom that Ben was in. She finds him floating by himself, and when she goes to check on him, he tells her that he's better now. She checks their air, and Ben tells her that they're out of danger now. Well, that's a possessed soul if there ever was one. Better yet, Tina really starts panicking when a snake starts wriggling around inside her mask. I can't really blame her, I like snakes, but this is not the time nor the place. After she gets it out of her mask, Ben leads Tina to the cellar and he assures her that this is the way to go. Once there, he knocks over a cabinet to reveal yet another door, and they head right on in. The tunnel leads them to another door, and they go inside to find a personal theater. Then a home video plays. Yeah, so I can't show you a lot of this, but Pierre and his dad would kidnap kids and do terrible things to them. The locals come kill Sarah in her bed, and Pierre manages to escape. The parents were hung with their masks as a way to shame them. Now back to our regularly scheduled horror movie. Now Sarah cuts through the screen, and Ben tells Tina to join them in the house. Tina refuses, and she swims through the movie screen to a secret cave area. She realizes that her oxygen is only at 2%, and she tries to find a way out. Not before Ben grabs a hold of her, and he tells her that he won't stay there without her. He goes to attack her with his knife, but Tina turns it around on him. Ben comes to his senses, but Sarah finishes him off before Tina can help him. Now that she's alone, Tina makes a break for it as her oxygen runs out, but the Montagnacs aren't making it easy for her. She finally breaks free after dropping her tank, and she eventually comes out through the crypt doors. She drops everything that she can, and she swims straight up to the surface. Aren't you not supposed to do that though? Aren't you supposed to slow climb out of a dive? I get that she's running out of air, but that just means she's screwed either way. Tina almost makes it to the surface, but she can't hold her breath any longer. She dies just below the surface, and the lake goes quiet. Then the credits roll. Well, that's a bittersweet ending, but I guess they can't all be happy endings. Honestly, this movie did a great job of building tension, and I'd happily watch this all over again. Give it a shot. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more like this one. Comment what you think I should watch next, and I'll see you in the next video.